formidable robot.
I don't know what the hell I just played. Perhaps this is a form of retribution for acquiring a game that was not intended for download or play. That game in question is a version of Baldi's Basics. Baldi's Basics in Education and Learning, or just Baldi's Basics for short, is a silly little mascot horror game created by Mistman12 and Basically Games in 2018, which parodied an old school edutainment game similar to Sonic's Schoolhouse, and it's wildly enjoyed by YouTubers and other players from the current generation. The game is simple: collect all 7 notebooks until the angry bald green-shirted maths teacher attacks you with his trademark ruler, and there are some annoying as hell NPCs that you have to avoid or fight back. Enough of that small intro thingy, let's get on with my experience. This occurred around October or November of 2023, with me on my old laptop. I have played the Baldi's Basics Classic Remaster that was released last year, so I decided to see if I could get the full version of Baldi's Basics Plus. As with most indie horror games, such as Five Nights at Freddy's, this one is a paid title, costing around $9.99 in the US and £7.19 in the UK. I didn't really have that much money on my Steam account back then, so I decided to look up the game for free. That's when I came across a Reddit post from someone by the name of Zan the Cheetah Hunter 9, or something along those lines. Zan linked a pirated copy of Baldi's Basics contained in a zip file via Mediafire, so I decided to check it out and download it to my downloads folder. It took a few long minutes until its completion, and after it was done, I decided to unzip the file, baldi_plus.zip, and then came a single folder. It was named with only one word, Basics. I opened the folder, and there was one executable file, basics.exe. This was something out of the ordinary, but as I was confronted by my curiosity, I launched the game. It began with the old Unity logo and warning screen as usual, and I was sent straight to the menu, with the jarring MIDI guitar intro tune playing like normal, with Baldi's voice welcoming me to his game. It was the main menu from the original 2018 game, with a render of Baldi standing there holding his ruler and a chalkboard with 3D Comic Sans text floating in front of it, with 2D text saying, Baldi's Basics in Education and Learning version 1.2.2, and the options being the poorly drawn red exit button with a white X on it, mouse sensitivity, start, and how to play. This caught me off guard, even though I was expecting a full version of Baldi's Basics Plus, which I downloaded for free, not an older version of the original Baldi's Basics Classic that came before First Prize and the secret ending. Shrugging off, I clicked Start, and then I was sent to Baldi's Schoolhouse in the game. The sprite of Baldi in the middle greeted the player as usual, followed by the familiar wacky MIDI jingle playing over and over again, like in the original game.
Oh! Hi!
He happily exclaimed, doing that natural yet wonky wave animation.
Welcome to my schoolhouse!
The graphics were the same as the 1.2.2 version, with the outside having no ground and the skybox being the light blue, light yellow and brown gradient that Unity had when creating a game. The game was a bit glitchy, but it was still playable as we went through the left blue door to a classroom. A salmon notebook hovered over the teacher's desk, so I approached and clicked on it, and I was taken to the You Can Think Pad screen as the looping math music played, with Baldi in his cheerful demeanor telling the player that it was time for math and instructing them to answer 3 questions correctly until he gives them something special. The first one I got was 7 plus 9 equals, so I typed 16 and got it correct, as Baldi praised the player with random dialogue. I answered the last 2 questions like normal before moving back to the schoolhouse and getting out of the first classroom, and the bald teacher thanked the player by giving them a shiny quarter, which is just a low-resolution sprite of a silver US quarter coin with George Washington's face plastered on it. I picked up the coin and headed to the right blue door to another classroom, where I saw a floating blue notebook on the desk as I clicked on it. I answered the first 2 normal math questions correctly, and then I got to the impossible question as the third and last one, with Baldi screeching that ungodly raw data noise representing that scrambled up problem 3 itself. Without further hesitation, I incorrectly answered it with random numbers, and that usually made Baldi pissed, with the math music stopping with one ding and text saying the phrase, "I hear every door you open." As the animation of Baldi's smiling face turning into an angry expression played, the sprite glitched, and it suddenly disappeared with a snap. And then I was booted back to the classroom in silence. As I left the room, Baldi's ruler slaps would play over and over again as normal, seeing the sprite of an angry Baldi slowly heading towards me with each slap, far from the large yellow door in the middle. I explored the schoolhouse with Baldi, slowly chasing me as usual, wildly getting detention by the principal of the thing a few times, and distracted by playtime, the bully, and got a sweep, and collected random items and 4 more notebooks, with the first 2 normal questions answered correctly and the last impossible one being blank or random incorrect answers. That's when I finished and collected the 7th and last notebook. The slapping stopped, and Baldi was nowhere to be seen. All the NPCs in the game have disappeared, just an empty silent schoolhouse. I thought this was meant to be an ARG in the form of a Baldi's Basics decompile mod, even though fans had been making Baldi mods that could be either reskins or decompiles to the game since its golden age, or both. I came across my first exit, which was in a large hallway with a brown faculty door and 2 blue classroom doors, and as I approached that exit, it turned into a brick wall showing where my exit location is. The environment of the schoolhouse didn't even turn red and make weird noises like in the original game, which was strange. Then I went into my second exit, which was where I started the game by collecting the first 2 notebooks. The same thing happened. I checked the third one in another hallway that has a giant payphone at the end, where the cafeteria is. Deja vu. That's when I heard a loud repeating thump noise as I was heading for the 4th and final exit in the cafeteria. What appeared was a dark edited sprite of Baldi with his ruler, his face warped, contorted and darkened, standing there, looking at me as the player. As I face and walk away from the distorted version of Baldi, he heads toward me, similar to a weeping angel, or SCP-173, followed by the same thumping sound from earlier. After I approached the final exit while watching Baldi and letting him stand there, the large door to the outside strangely did the same thing as the 3 previous exits, leaving me unable to escape. As I walk slowly while looking at the edited Baldi sprite for a few seconds, white very thin Comic Sans text covered in black and white dust pops up on the screen, followed by heavily distorted computerized voice whispering it out loud. After it did that, the schoolhouse turned red, and it played that loud rumbling sound from the normal game, which caused me to turn down the volume to its lowest setting. Baldi was chasing me down fast, but at least I have had 3 soda cans in my inventory for so long. As Baldi was getting way too close to me, I grabbed my soda and blasted him away from me. I ran as fast as I could around the schoolhouse from the twisted teacher until my stamina became almost drained, so I couldn't keep running. Baldi was still catching up to me and going faster, so I grabbed another soda and sprayed him again as I kept going. I now realize that the screen is starting to glitch and warp in some way, almost like a bad digital drug trip. As I tried to spray my last soda on the distorted sprite of Baldi, the screen glitched even more, and my soda slipped in the wrong direction. Baldi finally caught up with my player, not even playing that jarring buzzing sound during his jump scare, and then the game closed. No death screen, not even booting back to the main menu like it usually does. It just crashed without warning, leaving me completely and utterly confused. As the phrase, "curiosity killed the cat," whispered in my head, I decided to reopen the game, and that's when things took a weird change. As it restarted, the Unity logo was no longer there, it was just a black screen until it reached the main menu. However, what freaked me out was the distorted version of the original menu image. The text, Baldi's Basics version 1.2.2, was covered by a black void, yet I can still see in education and learning almost engulfed by it. On the black void was white warped Times New Roman text that said in all capital letters, "This is a warning." The black text at the bottom left said, "You are putting this upon yourself," also warped and in Times New Roman. The render of Baldi, along with the chalkboard and 3D text, had heavily compressed colors and was in a tritanopia tone, which made Baldi's skin look reddened and his iconic green shirt and blue pants appear a light blue. Baldi's head had a black hole for a face, thus resulting in him becoming featureless. The MIDI intro jingle that played was slowed, pitched down, warped and distorted, giving an ethereal and otherworldly vibe to the menu's appearance, and it didn't even play Baldi's welcome line at all. Everything in the main menu is gone, no red exit button, no mouse sensitivity option, no how to play menu, hell, even the start button is not there anymore. The only option in this modified version of the game is to click on the screen, which functions like the start option. After that, I was booted to an altered version of Baldi's Schoolhouse. Baldi was no longer in the middle of the hallway, and everything around the school was dark and gloomy, with the default Unity skybox being replaced by an endless black void. There wasn't that peculiar and jaunty schoolhouse MIDI I'd heard from the normal game. Instead, there was a slow, distorted and unsettling ambient noise that played in a loop, which added to the unnerving nature and setting of this twisted schoolhouse. I forgot to mention that the UI in the game was there as normal, but I noticed some changes. First, the Comic Sans text for the notebooks and item names was white, which fits the darkness of the school. Second, the item slot's sprite was cyan blue instead of green, except darkened and more compressed. Third, the stamina meter was white, with the color where your stamina decreases being pitch black. What hasn't changed is the textures in-game, except for the posters and chalkboards that showed cryptic messages and distorted and unnerving images all over the place, like the rules poster being replaced by an image of Baldi's head with black holes for eyes and a mouth in the darkness, with plain text above him that said, "Run." Confused, I went into the left classroom and clicked on a notebook like usual. When it showed the math screen with the ambience cutting off, the render of the You Can Think pad was changed to that dull, very darkened and highly compressed look, and the text on top of the model was replaced with, "You Can't Escape," with Baldi not present on the small black screen on the bottom left. The catchy math music didn't play this time, just dead silence. All three math problems were the jumbled up mess of letters, numbers and symbols from the third question of the last 6 notebooks in the original game. So I answered the 3 corrupted questions with blank or random answers, with text on the machine saying, "I know what you are doing, you crook," and then the game went back to the darkened schoolhouse with the ambient noise returning. I headed to the right classroom and collected my second notebook, and it went to the YCTP screen again until I wrote all the wrong answers down for the 3 impossible questions, which greeted me with text saying, "I'm finding you right now." After that, I decided to explore the dark and desolate schoolhouse to find more notebooks, with no other NPCs in sight, and the music was replaced with dead silence. That's when I noticed a strange noise starting to fade in as I walked. It was that weird pulsating synth noise from the normal game. Then I started to notice an ominous cyan blue light forming in the direction from where I walked out of the starter place, and what I saw made me scream. It was Baldi, but his sprite was shockingly different. The static low-quality render of his 3D model looks like he's flying, holding his ruler in his right hand, and his left hand is raised to look like he is waving. His colors looked darker and duller than before, and he had the black hole on his face just like in the heavily altered main menu. I sprinted as fast as I could while Baldi's ghastly form slowly glided toward my player. The entire gameplay of this monstrosity went on like normal with all my effort, until I got to the 7th and final notebook, in a classroom where the wow chalkboard used to be. As I answered the 3 math problems incorrectly in the last notebook, a loud voice shouted into the speakers, prompting me to turn it down. The voice said the following.
"You really think you can get out? Well, too bad. Prepare to get your just desserts, you brat."
But what's worse is that it didn't sound like Mistman 12's Baldi's voice. It sounded like some old man with the most pissed off tone imaginable, almost like he was about to murder someone, but what's strange is that it sounded awfully familiar to me. I reached my first exit in the cafeteria, which gets blocked off as the screen turns red, and it plays a looping audio of what sounded like faint ethereal laughter that reverses back and forth. The pulsating noise from Baldi is growing louder as I exit to the other hallway, so I grabbed a soda and shot him far away from me, and then I go to the second exit in the long hallway with 2 classroom doors and a faculty door. But as that exit gets blocked off, another one of those unsettling noises starts to play. It was this weird sounding trumpet noise that sounded like the one from Half-Life 2, although deeper and slower, followed by eerie rumbling and whispering voices. This audio went on in a loop until I got to the third exit, which was in the starter place with 2 classroom doors, and then it got blocked off for the final time as I touched it. The chaotic noise began to transform as I advanced to the hallway where the payphone was in the distance. I heard what sounded like children screaming, slowly fading in, as well as a cacophony of static and other ambient sounds I couldn't recollect. The final exit in that hallway was there, so I had to run there until Baldi reached my player. As I finally got my way out of that twisted schoolhouse, but instead of being greeted by the "Congratulations you won" screen, I was slipped into a new game, which completely removes my HUD. All the sound had stopped, cutting to silence. I was in the forest from that long-gone field trip demo, except the sky is all pitch black, and the setting is much gloomier than before. There was no campfire, no sticks, none of that, except for one object in the far distance. It was the payphone. This could be the way to end this digital nightmare once and for all. As I slowly walked toward the phone, I swear I faintly heard the same noise that seemed to come from Baldi, but I didn't bother looking behind me. This took around half a minute until I finally got to the phone. Despite my curiosity and not having any items like a quarter, I clicked on the phone, expecting the game to take a turn for the worse. In fact, it did. I lost control of my player, and the noise is getting louder. As I was able to move around the camera with my mouse, and there he is, the demonic glowing Baldi NPC, speedily gliding towards me. As Baldi touched my player, the game froze, showing his face absorbed by blackness as that deafening buzzing sound played, and then the screen cut to black. I realized I couldn't do anything, like pressing the escape key, the Windows key, or any key on my keyboard for that matter, so I had no choice but to manually shut down my laptop and turn it back on. It brings me to the normal login screen, so I log into the desktop, and then I'm greeted with this. It was an image of Baldi, with the same wrong colors and black hole on his face, pointing his index finger upward in a deep dark void of a background, with white Comic Sans text above him saying the following. No playing unauthorized games in the halls. It looks like you have been a bad student, but don't worry. To retrieve your files, you must pay 999 Bitcoin to the following address. Failing to do this within 24 hours will lead to the deletion of those files. Attempting to manipulate the program will only increase the price. I hope you've learned your lesson. This somehow raised even more red flags, to be fair. Plus, I don't even have a Bitcoin, so the only option to eliminate the virus is to allow the laptop to become non-functional within 24 hours. The laptop I owned was an older Dell model purchased in 2016 that had Windows 10 installed, and it was priced at about £185. I realized that the unauthorized game I downloaded ended up being ransomware, which is why I lack trust in posts or websites offering pirated content that might expose me to viruses capable of inflicting significant damage to the system's hardware and components. Later I filmed some evidence and began to tell my parents about my experience with the pirated game containing a virus, and they were shocked. My stepdad more or less warned me against downloading any pirated content that could have viruses and lead to legal issues, and then he threw the laptop into a dumpster filled with broken tech. I asked my mom if I could get a new computer, but she informed me it would take weeks to gather the funds before we could order one from Amazon. During the weeks of not having a computer, I began to have these strange yet fucked up nightmares. I remember being in the maths classroom of my old school, where I found myself at a young age struggling to write out answers on a printed sheet of paper. It got even worse when I answered the complex math problems incorrectly, causing my maths teacher to react with unexpected anger as I submitted my failed test. He was yelling at me in that familiar voice, and then he started transforming into the entity that looked like Baldi from that disturbing modified game, as the students watched in awe at the chaos unfolding. The monster whipped up his wooden ruler and slapped me across my face with it, causing me to exclaim in pain, and a bloody cut formed on my cheek. Then he starts beating me black and blue with his ruler, giving me bruises and even more cuts around my body as he continues yelling in extreme rage, followed by my cries of unbearable pain and distress. The worst part is that the students didn't scream in horror and start panicking, or even try to get help and stop his torment. They just sat there, laughing at my agony and misfortune, and they laughed so hard that their voices began to distort. While the abuse and humiliation went on, the last thing the demonic teacher would do was pin me down to the whiteboard, and then he proceeded to stab me in the chest with his ruler, where my heart is, saying the familiar words, "I hope you learned your lesson." And as he did that, I woke up in my bedroom, screaming at what happened in that dream. But what's worse is that the dream felt real, almost like a traumatic childhood memory that can't get out of my brain. Somehow after the beating and stabbing in that nightmare, I was still alive and well, with no cuts or permanent injuries whatsoever. My scream woke up my parents as they went into my room, telling me what was wrong, and I informed them about the details of the nightmare. After weeks of therapy and funding, I got a new strong PC with Windows 11 pre-installed, and installed all my programs and games in there, like Roblox, Minecraft, and Steam. I legally purchased and played Baldi's Basics Plus via Steam, thanks to Mom giving me the £20 Steam points card. The Reddit thread and Mediafire link I looked back on have been thankfully taken down due to software piracy and other legal site policies, and the user, Zan the Cheetah Hunter 9, was terminated the same day as the post's deletion by the admins. If you come across any unauthorized software or games available for free download, it's best to avoid them to prevent damaging your computer or encountering serious repercussions.